There it is.
Hello, and welcome back to This Podcast Counts as Socializing. I'm your host, Kayla, and I'm joined with Abby and Nick.
Hello, Kayla. How's it going?
Hi. How is everyone?
I'm good. Doing good.
Lovely. Cold.
Really? I'm kind of sweating.
Oh, good for you.
Has anyone seen the Minecraft movie yet?
No, have you?
No.
Okay, the weirdest thing is that this is like less than 24 hours since I've been asked that question. Like,
Well, Abby, I thought you were going to be there when it premiered, so that's why I'm confused.
Jack Black didn't invite me to the premiere for some reason, so I have to talk to him.
Oh, you weren't at the red carpet? Ooh, embarrassing.
Damn.
I know. I don't know. Him and I have been having a rough time
I
recently.
think you could do a really good Enderman cosplay.
That's a good idea.
That could be problematic, but I'm down to.
No. If you have the mask on, it's fine. You just need
And
the,
then Josh can dress as Steve.
Yeah, I think you guys should go as an Enderman and Steve.
Honestly, if I had tall enough heels, I do.
Yeah, well,
That actually might be really fun.
Some gigantic
I
black
think that
boots.
would fit you guys pretty well, actually.
I think it would be perfect.
Leathercore Enderman.
Leathercore Enderman. I'll do it. I'll make that the same night that I do my Mothman costume because I feel like Mothman and Enderman would be friends.
Us in two different states.
I do that all the time. I'm like, well, Connor is having his Easter party tonight, so whatever outfit I also wear tonight should coordinate the theme for the party I'm not going to.
That's so funny.
I saw that where you were like, what day is it, Connor? And I was like, is she coming back from the party?
No, well, the reason I was thinking about it is because you were trying to you were making it. You had something about your tattoo appointment, and I was like, can't you do both? What time are these events at that this is an issue? So it was more just is everyone on the same page here?
I need to have a Good Friday party.
This
should. Will be a Good Friday. I think that's soon. I think that's coming up.
It's also right around 420.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Easter is on 420 this year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
Incense is not going to be the only thing that we will be burning.
Do you burn incense on Easter?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I actually don't know that much about Easter, so
I think they do a little bit. I'm trying to remember. I haven't been to church on an Easter.
The Jesus candle.
Yeah, I haven't been to
church.
church.
You could probably make that joke with Ash Wednesday in some way.
Yeah.
Oh, but I guess you don't really smoke weed on Ash Wednesday.
I mean, you could. What's to stop you?
Yeah, you could, but it's not 420.
Right. Well, that's
true. From burnt leaves that are used. But I wouldn't know anything about that.
No, you wouldn't.
Mm-mm.
Me neither.
From a Christian woman.
You're gonna say I'm a Christian whore.
Well,
Abby,
you remove the Christian.
Abby, you're a secular whore.
Or secular
whore is a good band name.
I agree.
It looks like Kayla's snooping from someone else's camera right now.
It does. She's trying to come into my camera right now.
Can you imagine if we do that one day where we can find a crossover moment where someone just moves over and they're together?
Is there a horror movie that's like that?
Are you thinking of Unfriended or something?
Yeah.
Color.
I've never seen that movie, so.
Okay, look, I love how your title screen has zero color to it.
I was just gonna say that. It's in black and white.
No, it's funny because I was thinking about when Abby made her presentation and she used all the themes and stuff, and I was like, nah. I just need the information. And if that doesn't tell us the difference between our personalities, I don't know what does.
This is an auditory medium for the most part. So
exactly.
Listener, what we have in front of us is a presentation slide that says the word colors in black on a white background. And that is it.
Yeah.
It is colorblind friendly.
Mm-hmm.
There will be pictures. And if you want to see them, listener, you can follow our Instagram at This Pod Counts.
Or watch on YouTube.
Yeah. But before I get into today's topic, I just want to talk about colors with you guys. Do you guys have favorite colors you hate, colors you're really into right now? What's your relationship with colors?
I like greens a lot. I'm a big earth tones kind of guy.
Yeah,
in
Nick,
general.
you're a big earth tones guy.
As we can kind of see from what I'm wearing.
Big earth guy over here.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel colors wise, it really depends on the context. For a house, I have a different idea of what colors I want, but for what I wear, it mostly goes with what goes with my complexion. I really like color theory, things like that, what makes other things pop. But
we're not talking about color theory today, but that would be a fun topic.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's fun to work out like what goes with what, and how you can even play with contrasts. But
And I do love when I find like an unexpected color combination that I really like. Like,
yes,
ooh, I never thought about putting these together, but I really like how they look.
Mhm.
I like a nice pop of red and yellow as well sometimes.
I'm a big into the unexpected red pop.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I think it's really fun.
I'm thinking of that too because saw some flowers on my little hike this morning that were like a little pop of red in a otherwise, mostly brownish, green, earth tony kind of environment. It was nice.
I will say this is going to be an interesting topic to talk about when I know people who have listened to us in the past. A lot of our friends are colorblind.
Well, it's okay. So I guess I will introduce what our topic is today. We're going to be talking about inventing new colors.
Ooh.
So I mean, this will not help our colorblind friends. They still will not be able to see the colors that they can't see. But to our viewers, they can see what the colors are that I'm talking about on our Instagram. And by inventing new colors, I don't mean like inventing new colors that we as people can, like a new color that we have not perceived before. Like, that's impossible. You can only perceive the amount of colors right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, right, like the colors that exist are the ones in the visible spectrum.
Okay, so maybe we should talk about what is color. So color is just, and I didn't put this in my notes or research this at all. This is off the cuff, me explaining what a color is.
Very biased rendition of colors.
Yeah, this is Kayla's background knowledge, which might be more extent than we think. Okay, so basically, light moves in waves, and based on the size of that wave. Okay, maybe I shouldn't get into the physics.
I'll do the physics part.
Difficult.
I'll do the physics part.
Okay, do the physics.
So light, or electromagnetic radiation, exists on a spectrum from everything from extremely long waves, like radio, to extremely short waves, like X-rays, gamma rays, all of those. The energy and the wavelength are correlated, and there is a section of the electromagnetic spectrum that is visible to human eyes. We call it the visible spectrum, and that goes from red on one end to violet on the other. Red being longer wavelengths and lower energy, and blue being the blues, violets being higher energy, shorter wavelength. And all of the colors that we can see are made of combinations of different wavelengths of light.
Yes, exactly. Awesome. That is color as a physical property. Now I'll give the biology. So the light hits your eye, that then activates neurons in the back of your eye, and they're able to interpret the level of energy from the photons that they receive, and then that travels into your brain, which then has a perception of that sensation that is one of the visible colors. Okay.
And Kayla, are you going to mention like how color blindness arises, or?
Okay, yeah, that has also nothing to do with this topic, but I can tell you. There are different kinds of color blindness too, so this is like a very general how color blindness works, but there's types of cells in your eyes that are the color perceiving cells. They basically have the ability to take one kind of information and make it another kind of information. So they're taking the physical information of the size of the wavelength and making it a conscious. They're the intermittent cells.
Yeah, they're like trigger neurons that respond to your brain.
We actually don't. There's like two theories of why we perceive colors, but we know that there are 3 types of those cells that receive color, and we know that the levels to which they get triggered tells our brain to read those levels differently. So colorblind people may have like a deficiency of one of those cells, or maybe one cell gets activated more than another cell, but something with their cells is wrong, or it could be something with like the connection. But I feel like maybe there are too many different kinds of color blindness for me to explain what color blindness is.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case.
Yeah, but
there's a lot of different mechanisms for
color perception, and people like that can still see a little bit of color, but it has different shades to them. Is like the 2 opposing ones on one cone is red green, or the other
Thank you, Abby.
yellow blue. So a lot of people, I think, more commonly have red-green color blindness, specifically in men.
Yep.
Yes.
And then, there's also yellow-blue, which I don't really know how that appears to other people. I've mostly seen what the red-green spectrum looks like. And then I think the third color you're talking about is like kind of like, they don't know what it does, but it's like kind of like a hues saturation kind of perception. But that's me very much guessing.
Yeah, because you can have like a biological difference, or it could be like, well, I guess they're all biological differences. But yeah, it's basically like how your brain is interpreting could also be like the thing that's fucked up, and not necessarily like a difference
The
in
cones.
like.
Yeah, because the color blindness can happen, I think, either in the cones or in the processing and sending of that data to the brain.
Yeah.
So it can happen in multiple spots.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of different mechanisms for it.
Or data processing specific.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
So shout out to the colorblind people.
Yeah, shout out. Not what we're talking about today at all.
Yeah, just to get them started, get them invested.
Okay. What we are talking about is colors like pigments and paints. Like things used to put color into the world. Yeah.
Very
That's
cool.
how I'm going to explain that.
There's some fun stuff here.
Exactly. So we got to start at the beginning, obviously, and just talk about what pigments are.
Let's go.
So we're going to start with our natural pigments. Can I get a W in the chat for ochre?
Let's go natty pigs.
The natty pigs.
Shout out to my natty pigs.
So paint is first thought to have been used for the first time over 20,000 years ago when organic materials were mixed with binding agents like eggs or animal byproducts, so like fats and stuff, to make like a liquid pigment that they can then use for marking and painting. So this is things like rocks, bones, different minerals, plants, things that you could find in nature, natural pigments. This could also be like charcoal, like coal is a natural pigment. And ochres are like the main colors that we get. Like this is today, you can buy like red ochre, brown ochre, yellow ochre. And so this is a range of colors from yellow, red, and brown. And ochre is a naturally occurring pigment, but it's primarily made out of iron oxide. So that specific material. And the color that you get is based on how oxidated or how hydrated the iron is.
Okay, because I was about to ask the question. So, like, it does seem like a lot of these are very warm tone with the ochres. Yes. Is that because of the oxidation typically leans warm tone?
Exactly. So it's an iron, and it's either gaining hydrogens or losing hydrogens, and that's making it either more red or more brown.
Yeah.
Okay.
And part of that is like the reason that these colors like show up so often is because they're just like really easy to find and make. So like that's what,
because we'll talk about some other natural like there are other colors they have. There's more natural things in the world, but that we don't figure out till later on, and are just harder materials to find.
I mean, I can go grab some like naturally pigmented rocks that I have in my rock collection, but
always trying to bring out the fucking rocks.
Wait, what's the term for like the color?
Nick, you better go grab your rocks. Goddamn.
Okay, I'll go get a piece of turquoise.
Wait, Nick, can you answer this question real quick?
Oh no, that bitch took his headphones off. Well, ask me, maybe I'll know.
Oh yeah, maybe. Okay, so do you know like what the what it's called when how like there's like the 5 different tests of what rock it is or whatever? When you scrape it against a surface, the residue that it leaves behind.
Oh, one of them is like if it leaves a mark?
Well, it's if it leaves a mark and like what color the mark is.
No, I don't know this answer, but Nick almost certainly does.
Yeah. I want to say talc, but it's not talc. I think talc just really easily...
Talc is the softest one. I remember that.
Yeah, like very easily leaves pigment.
Rock characteristics. It's going to be so annoying when Nick sits down and knows it immediately. Oh, it's just called streak, Abby.
Is it?
Yeah, but you knew it.
Like... Boom. Ooh. Naturally occurring.
Nick, don't spoil it. We're not at turquoise yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
It's very pretty.
I would also like to add a little in here. Charcoal, super easy. People have been making fires for forever. And it does not take much to realize that you can like take a piece of charcoal and like draw on a rock with it.
Yeah.
I've done that before. It's something people have been doing for like forever.
I feel like everyone's like taken a rock before and like used it like at sidewalk chalk.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So there's like the history of humans making art goes back way longer than painting does. And pigments. These ones just tend to survive slightly better for a variety of reasons.
And I just picked these 3 colors because these are 3 that are like we just still commonly use today. They're like factory produced. Most brands of like acrylic or oil paint or whatever paint that you buy on the market today that are called one of the umbers are probably synthetically made. There are like brands that will still make naturally occurring pigments, but I think they're just more expensive. And I as an artist, I don't know like if one's better than the other, like why someone might spend more to have a naturally occurring pigment. But that's why I picked those 3. They're common and they start us on the journey of making pigments for our art or for other things. Lots of reasons to make pigments.
Question
about... go for it.
Okay, so I might already know the answer if I critically thought about it, but so you know how
people on the internet before asking the dumbest thing.
People before dumping basically a bottle of water to use an AI search engine to answer a question they probably knew.
Yeah.
Okay,
maybe before pulling out ChatGPT.
But so you know how in makeup they typically like for red pigments, there's a big debate on whether or not you should use I think like certain beetles that can create that pigment.
Yes. So I actually ended up cutting this out of my notes. I was gonna do this color, but then the reason I cut it out is because it was like Europeans discover this pigment, but then it was like they didn't discover it. They just showed up to the Aztecs and took it and started selling it. So I was like, this wasn't inventing. This was theft.
Damn pollination.
But I can pull it up real quick, the notes. But what was your question, Abby?
So yeah, so like since there is like naturally occurring pigments that are more, less, more ethical to use, and it seems like they are very prevalent. Like, why would you think that they tend to use that?
Why they use the bug?
Yeah.
Okay, so the name of the bug is cochineal. And yeah, it's just what kind of bug is it? Soft.
It's some kind of beetle, bug. I think, right?
Yeah. I mean, how else are you gonna make? Well, okay, I guess maybe I should. It's okay. Look at the red in these paintings, Abby. This is like a different color red. Like this is like a different thing. They're like using what they have around them. It's like because now it's so different because we figured out how to synthetically make pretty much any color. But before it was like, this is a new color we can use. Like, they're expanding their color palette to something else.
It was probably a more pure red is a big part of it.
I see. Okay, gotcha. And, I was also thinking, you can breed beetles. So, you can just kind of, have an endless supply, whereas you kind of have to, find a place to extract.
This also says, I'm just, quickly grazing the Wikipedia article now, so... But this also says that it binds really well with animal and plant fibers, so it made it cling to fabrics better. So there could be some actual properties of the pigments too that you would choose one over the other.
I see. All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah. I think it's just it's. I mean, how else you gonna make it red?
How you gonna make it red?
How you gonna make it red? Well, enough about red. Because we're gonna get in our blue period, baby. Okay, there was so much shit about blue that I was like, the color blue could be its own episode. So, and I edited it down. I'm not gonna talk about all the blues, but I'm gonna talk about some blues, because there are a lot of blues to talk about. We're gonna start with Egyptian blue, the original girl. Let's see, how old is she? Oh, it's the earliest known synthetic pigment. So they're mixing chemicals. Is what that means. They're mixing chemicals to get to a new color.
Yeah.
So Egyptian blue is also known as calcium copper silicate. Okay, that's the other thing, is not necessarily here, but I started getting into chemistry class. I was like, I thought I was gonna have a fun little art history topic. and then I just kept needing to know more. I was like, okay, but why blue? And it would just be because it's and then it would give me a long chemical name, and I was like, yes, but why is it blue? So
one thing I want to touch on before we get into the blue as well is a lot of languages did not have anywhere near as many words for colors as we do today, right? Like, we think of a lot more colors today, but like almost universal, red, white, and black are like three of the most common colors that we see in like every language since the beginning of time, right? Like those colors have been around forever, and that kind of makes sense, right? You got light, dark, and you have blood, which is like color that you see a lot, right? Especially back in hunter-gatherer days. And so blue like really didn't exist in a lot of languages until people started making blue dyes, because like there are things that are blue in nature, right? We think of the sky, but the sky often got lumped in with like white and brightness, and like because it's usually
and it's
more
not always blue,
right? It's not always blue. It's usually brighter than it is like blue in the sense that we think of blue today. And then the ocean, which usually was called like green or like dark or like those kinds of colors in a lot of languages before that we really invented like blue pigments, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, earliest known synthetic dye. It was held in higher regard in ancient Egypt. So this is what you were saying. Like, it was meant to imitate things like turquoise. Show it now, Nick. Show it now.
Boom, piece of
and
turquoise.
Lapis lazuli, which were like they regarded for being both rare and like vibrant. They thought it was pretty, but it was also something that was hard to find. So being able to make a synthetic pigment to replicate like a precious stone. Cool.
And again, there just aren't that many things that are blue in nature. Like, go outside and look. I mean, ignoring the sky, look for something that is bright blue. Like, those colors just don't.
I disagree with that statement.
What do you see that is?
But the sky and the ocean.
Yeah, that's what. But I guess Nick is saying if you only have the color white and black, then they're just contextualizing it as white.
But,
like it's and dark or light.
I guess.
Oh, there's like a whole like history of the language for the color blue, like taking a long time to evolve. Like, I think.
Well, do you think maybe they just described things as sky and ocean, and that got misinterpreted, and never realized that they're kind of like talking about the color more so than the like.
Actually, that's possible.
I guess. It's not that we're saying like blue wasn't around. I guess it's more like their language to talk about blue would have been different in some way.
Yeah, like I think it's in either like the Iliad or the Odyssey that Homer describes the ocean as like wine dark instead of calling it blue, which is interesting.
It does refer to alcohol first.
And as we talk about like different blue pigments that we make, we'll see like because some of these are old bitches. They've been doing this for a while. You'll see that that thing had a name, and then that color was also that thing. So it is evolving. Yeah, so they're trying to mimic valuable stones, but it was impractical for them to make these pigments naturally occurring because mining those gems was hard and rare, and it would have been very expensive. The earliest known artifact that used this pigment is from 3250 BC. That's old.
That's like 5,000 years old.
Fast math, Nick. And then the use remained popular all throughout the Egyptian kingdom. I think that's what it's called. Into the Greco-Roman period. But then in the 4th century AD, the how to manufacture it gets lost in history. So they like don't know how to make the pigment.
That's kind of cool.
Do they still not know?
Well, I'll get to it. We know now, but for like a long time, we don't see the color being used, and we don't see like any records of like how to make the pigment. The first mention of the color is in the 1st century in Roman literature, but they're just like describing like seeing the color and like describing like it was like this same pigment made this way.
Interesting. So they kept the secret too good. The secret recipe was too secret.
I don't know if it was meant to be a secret, or if like maybe it was like a dying art form. You know how like lace work is like. There's like a list of like crafts that they say will die out within like I don't know what the time period is, like let's say like a decade or something like that, if no one like starts apprenticing it. So maybe it was just something like that where like the knowledge wasn't being passed along.
Yeah. But I think that
a writing bias, specifically out of like Egyptian texts, where
it
like
could also be that.
Well, yeah, like this is kind of a writing bias all over, but I know mostly about Egyptian scripts. But like a lot of the people that wrote were rich, affluent men of status. So do you think, those people are really talking about the labor of making a pigment, or do you think
like it could have just been like they didn't even exactly, like the people that would have kept those records, like maybe they're like not the kind of records that they would have buried them with, and like those are also the things that we still have as stuff that was like important for burial.
I do think that Egyptian blue pigments were like kind of seen as a status symbol because they were kind of hard to make.
Yeah,
so I do think there was some amount of like secret recipe-ness going on, and then they may have kept the secret too well and like weren't.
It could have also been a legit secret, and we'll see that with some other colors where it was like they had laws around.
Yeah, well, and there was kind of a decline of the Egyptian civilization after the end of the Old Kingdom, I think, where the Romans kind of became the hub of power in the Mediterranean, or the Greeks and Romans. So it could have happened, at that time. Yeah.
But basically, whatever the reason, it did not seem people had the knowledge to make the pigment. And in modern history, we did not know how that they were making the pigment at the time. And that was until interest in the pigment was renewed in the early 19th century, when like interest in the Egyptians was big.
Back when people were eating mummies and shit.
Exactly. Back when people were way too into Egypt. So scientist Humphrey Davies begins working on like looking at the pigment and figuring out what it is chemically, and then trying to figure out how they can recreate the pigment. So in 1815, many scientists and archaeologists, through many experiments that I will not talk about, eventually work out the details of how to make the pigment. So they basically were able to reverse engineer it from having some of the pigment. So how do you make Egyptian blue? It's basically just the grinding of sand and copper and then heating the mixture up. You also need to have some kind of lime for the process, but it was just assumed that the Egyptians would have had sand that was really rich in lime, and then that's how they would have done it at the time. Cool.
Neat.
I wonder if they discovered that, where maybe they were like, oh, if I mix sand with this copper, maybe I'll get like a yellow, and like blue came out, and they're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I really do wonder if it was accidental, or if they had like good enough knowledge of chemistry to be like, oh, if I have this substance plus this substance, it will yield this, or if it was just an accident, like someone just noticed it.
If I may add a little thing here, the places that you find a lot of blue minerals in nature, like turquoise and other stuff, they're usually copper containing. So you tend to find those things in places that you also find copper, and maybe they were like, oh, this copper area has all these like blue things, let's see if we can use the copper to recreate it, and like using the materials that they have
kind
on
of
that
reversed
site.
Engineered it from their like observations.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah, like maybe not like a chemical knowledge, but a knowledge of like, well, we kind of see these things, so let's try this.
Yeah, and I'm sure there was some trial and error involved.
Yeah. Humans are so smart.
We will get into some colors that are just accidents, though. So like people also just stumble upon things like penicillin.
That is true.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, Egyptian blue is cool, but what other blue were people using, especially when we forgot how to make Egyptian blue? Well, baby, I'm bringing to you ultramarine blue, which is not my favorite blue on the list, but I do love Miss Ultra. So ultramarine blue first hits the scene in the 900s in present-day Afghanistan, and this is made out of mined lapis lazuli. So this is the naturally occurring version of Miss Egyptian blue, which meant that it was very, very expensive to make. It was worth more than gold, but it was really vibrant. Like, she's the brightest bitch on the scene right now. if you like look at our little hex color picker down here and compare it to Miss Egyptian blue, you can see we're stepping it up a little bit.
Yeah, it's much more saturated.
I mean, she is all the way. She's as blue as you can get. She is the bluest of the blue. So it was fairly easy to make. It's just separating the natural pigment from the stone and adding it to a binder. But it's the mining of the stone that's the difficult part. It was one of the most costly pigments ever made. Ancient Egyptians, like I said before, often used these stones in some of their ornaments, but there was no evidence that they were ever grinding it up to make a pigment the way that we see starting in the 900s, I guess. The earliest painting ever found to use ultramarine was from the 6th century, and that's this Buddhist painting that you can see here. And this was also found in modern day Afghanistan. And so ultramarine is not the most stable of the pigments and will fade over time. And also there can be, since it's a naturally occurring pigment, there can be some differences in like how vibrant or like tonal, like there can be impurities in your pigment mixture.
Yeah.
So I think it's really impressive how vibrant this blue still looks, considering the age of it. Like, it's very impressive how blue that temple is.
Yeah, for sure.
And correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't like using blue in painting some sort of status symbol where like only the like best painters used it?
Yes, because ultramarine is so expensive is a big part of it.
Exactly. You're hitting it 100% on the head, Abby. That is the big historical significance of this, is that it is so expensive, and it has this like, I mean, it has this like otherworldly look. Like, it is the brightest thing in every one of these pictures. It almost glows. It is so bright. So it does become not only associated like as a status symbol, but also heavily tied with religion. As you can see a lot in these pictures, it's often used to depict like the garments that Mary wears are often in ultramarine blue. So it does get historical significance in that way as well, because of who would have been able to purchase ultramarine blue. The time we have a lot of religious art because churches were the people that were able to pay people to make art. Like, being an artisan was like someone's job. There's not a lot of people that can just make art for hobby. So like, they're only making art when someone is paying them to make that art. So that's also why we see a lot of like religious iconography with these.
Well, and the wealthy and powerful people were commissioning religious art as a way of demonstrating to the people around them how pious they were.
Exactly.
Like,
we love God so much. We spent so much money on that painting. I love God the most.
Look how much I love God. Like, look how rich I mean, look how much I love God, you know? Only someone as wealthy as me could love God like this, you know?
One thing about Jesus, you could definitely buy that man's love with a painting.
It's true. He's very, very famously, rich men can fit.
Oh, you know Jesus? He's on my wall right now.
Oh my God, I know him too. Yeah, so religious art is a big one. Johannes Vermeer, the famous Dutch painter who painted The Girl with Pearl Earring, is known to rely heavily on ultramarine blue, so much that he put his family in debt to buy the pigment. But tell me if Girl with the Pearl Earring would be the same without the ultramarine blue.
It wouldn't.
No, I think it was worth his family not being able to eat.
Yeah, did he die before that became famous?
I don't know, but knowing artists, probably.
50-50 on that one, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we're enjoying the fruits of his labor and debt.
Yeah, so Girl with Pearl Earring is probably the one that most people would know. He's a very famous artist, though, and he also painted this one below. I included this one because you can see how much the ultramarine has started to fade over time. In this picture, it's leaning very heavily towards teal. It's starting to weather. And I don't know how much of that could be fixed with like art restoration. Like, they do have to like clean paintings. But I mean, it's kept in the National Gallery, so I'm assuming they're like doing a good job of maintaining it. So yeah, I think it's interesting that you can see that the color does start to fade over time.
It may be one of those things where it was kept in a private collection for a long time. A lot of the fading happened, and then
now
you don't want to do too much. You don't want to be too heavy-handed with your
exactly. Exactly.
I think that like the display of paintings that you have slide. Definitely shows just how much it can vary, and also like how it preserves, like where like the one Mary painting, like that like blue is so vibrant, so like and you can still see all the detail that was added to it through shading. But like you can definitely see like those don't look like the same color, but you also
it looks
don't know.
old. It's still, what's crazy though, it's like it looks old, but it still looks so vibrant. Like I'm still like, damn, that's a good color.
Well, it's weird because it looks like that blue lasted longer than any color on that painting.
Yeah, it is very.
Painting, it looks like the other colors lasted much better.
Yeah, that could also be like they'll still mix like white and stuff in, like, and they're doing shading and stuff. So versus maybe like this temple looks like they probably just used the flat color, so that could also be part of it.
Yeah.
The other painting I want to point out on this page is this top right corner, The Entombment by Michelangelo. The rumor around this is that it's left unfinished because he couldn't afford to buy the ultramarine blue to finish it. So I think that's interesting to see. Yeah, we already went over this. It's often so fine that it's associated with symbolnesses.
Indeed.
It symbolizes holiness and humility.
It's
I really liked...
Not to poke the religious bear, but like it's so funny where it's like the display of religion is how rich you are versus like the display of religion is like how humble you are. Instead it's like, yeah, like look how many fun things I have, and also I'm religious.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to brag about being humble.
Right, exactly.
It is so hard to let people know how humble you are.
It is. God, I try to do it all the time, you know?
Yeah, I had Michelangelo paint my ceiling to show how humble I was.
Yep. Yeah, very famously.
Like the most humble thing you can do.
I didn't have him paint me. That would be too much. I would paint the entire religious text onto the ceiling.
I didn't even pay him that much. He couldn't even afford to finish it.
Very famously, camels can pass through eyes of needles. It's a little Bible reference there.
Oh, I was like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, Nick, are you stroking out?
No, there's like a Bible passage that's like, it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter heaven or something like that.
Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah.
That eats down. That eats so hard. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm going to write that down. This is why I should read the Bible. It seems like I'm going to be into it.
Look, there's some good stuff in there. It's just...
They sound anti-capitalist.
Certain people who often have a lot of money and love to show off how much money they have like to interpret it in ways that do mean bad things to other people. Anyway.
Okay, so I found this quote that I liked that I wanted to share about the color. It's from the Paris Review. It says, quote, "Ultramarine, the quality of the shade, it embodies its name. This is a superlative blue, the end of all blues, the blue to which all other hues aspire. The name means beyond the sea, a dreamy ode to its distant origins, as romantic as it is imprecise."
Can you reread that in the Trump voice?
No, please don't.
I'm certain I can't do a Trump impression. It's the bluest of blue.
There's never been a bluer blue.
Oh my God.
They're gonna get tired of so much blue.
Rip Trump. He would have loved Michelangelo. Okay. So again, it's expensive. So in 1820, this is a French word that I'm going to pronounce the best I can. The Society des Encouragement.
It's probably some bullshit like encouragement or something.
Exactly. And I was like, I can't do that. Offers a reward of 6,000 francs. Is that what it is? To anyone that can make a synthetic ultramarine. Yes, thank you, Abby, for the translation. Yeah, so they were like, we will pay someone the equivalent of $200,000 if you can make a fake ultramarine because this shit is too expensive, but we want to keep making shit this color. 2 men figured out a solution within 2 weeks of each other.
Damn, the blue battle.
Yeah, so French chemist Jean-Baptiste Gumnet claimed to have developed the color a year prior, whereas the German professor Christian
Gremlin.
But
Oh, that's a what's it called when you add a dot at the end? Abbreviation.
He's gonna have to be Gremlin. Christian Gremlin claimed he developed his approach 2 years before. So they're both like, no, I did it first. Yeah, so eventually they just gave it to the French guy and moved on. They had no reasoning. I think just because they were a French organization. I couldn't find a reason.
No, the French does love to claim things that isn't there.
Yeah, and one guy was French and the other guy was German. So I think they're just like, we'll just give it to the French guy, because then they would also sometimes call it French ultramarine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. While we're on the topic of ultramarine, we have to talk about International Klein Blue.
Damn.
Classic.
Yeah. It was developed by Yves Klein, as you could tell, he named it after himself. He instead he made a synthetic version of the pigment, and he used a lot of mattening synthetic binders to make the pigment more stable so that it wouldn't fade as much over time.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
So this is like the more what the color would probably have looked like at its peak, I guess, is a good way to think about it.
I feel like this are they just called the Blue Men?
The Blue Man Group? Abby, they use International Klein Blue. They do. It is specifically International Klein Blue. I don't know how I forgot about that, but I read that as I was going through. How did you clock that? That's the Blue Man Group.
The painting on the right, I was like, that is
That is what they look like.
Blue Man Group Blue. Oh my god. Yeah. Well, you're correct. Klein basically just fell in love with, he said he fell in love with the vibrant blue color of the deep cerulean skies of the Mediterranean. I know. Also known as the Blue Man Group. He fell in love with the deep cerulean skin of the Blue Man Group.
That man's head, you know?
Yeah, so in the 60s, he patents his formula for this color. I actually saw this painting in person. And it's one of those, it's at a modern art museum, and you walk in and you're like, it's just a blue canvas. That's the art. But I will say, it does look really bright in person.
Yeah.
And then I read the description and I was like, oh, okay, so he made that color. I guess show it off, King.
It's probably one of those things where at the time it was like really insane because it was so, like, new pigment just dropped. Like, oh my god, we've never seen something like this.
I had contrast with every other color in the room, too.
I remember specifically seeing this painting, and I was so intrigued by it that I read the sign about it, and I still have like the memory of seeing it and being like, "That's a blue-ass blue."
Fair enough.
So I'm
and
like,
at the time, that would have been like $1 billion worth of ultramarine blue on that canvas.
So I'm like, this is a time where I kind of like understand modern art, because I'm like, yeah, the thing that's interesting right now is the color. Just show the bitch off. Let her have her time to shine. And it was impressive, and it did make me remember it, and it left an impact. So I guess I'm like, I guess, good art.
That's art.
Left such an impact that it found its way into culture.
Yeah, and then the Blue Man Group was like,
shit, we should cover our entire skin in that.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I'm just now putting this all together now, but I feel like the reasoning is because this artist, like, he basically just did blue after that. That was his thing. And he would do, like, performance art pieces of people just covered in the paint.
Huh.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so the Blue Man Group kind of came for his brand.
Yeah, that's where I'm getting here. Like, do you think he's part of the Blue Man Group? Like, do you think he's like a backer?
He's the original Blue Man.
That's what I'm saying. Is he the Blue Man?
The Blue Man Group knows about that. Has someone talked to them recently?
Yeah, let me call him up.
Can we get the Blue Man Group on the horn? Okay. Okay, next is my favorite blue of the list. Ooh. It's Prussian blue, baby.
Woo! I was waiting for this one.
Depressing blue.
Nick, I love you.
I like Prussian blue.
No, Prussian blue, and I've got the best fun facts about Prussian blue. I'm so excited to talk about Prussia. Wait, Prussian blue. Prussia's not coming up. They're unrelated.
I mean, we should probably mention Prussia, but yeah.
Nick's like, I wanted to talk about Prussia. So it was developed in the early 18th century and is considered to be the first modern synthetic pigment. It's thought that Prussian blue was first accidentally made by Johann Jacob in 1706 when he was attempting to make a red dye. So one of the ingredients... What'd you say, Abby? Oh, you're like, big fuck up.
Yeah, I can't help but imagine the guy surprised. He's like, I'm gonna make a red. And he's like, oh, no.
No, it's blue!
Stop my blue!
Oh my god, it's like a... I think he's Dutch.
Well, it's probably Johann, not Johann, by the way.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm picturing it like a Mr. Bean skit. Like, all he has to do is mix red and it keeps coming out really fucking blue.
Yes.
Okay, there is a reason though, because they're making it synthetically, so he's doing like chemical shit, and he accidentally had some blood added in, which contained iron, and then when it reacted with the iron ferrocyanide, it turned blue. So he like...
How's he inserting his blood into this equation?
That was my exact question. I couldn't find an answer.
Blood in your chemical processes? God.
Aren't you wearing gloves? You're in a lab.
I wasn't wearing gloves back then. If you're talking about, this was before they probably had this is when they had wooden tables for surgery.
You're right. This is the...
Yeah, this probably predates latex gloves.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, he must have just talk about...
They didn't
I don't know.
washing hands until I'm pretty sure the mid-1800s.
I couldn't find an answer. All I know is some blood got added, and there's iron in blood, and the iron was what was missing to make it red. Because we talked about this before.
Put blood into it and accidentally make blue because was this a one-time accident?
I feel like you...
He's in the chem lab performing a ritual where he slices his hand open and drips it into the thing, and then the color changes, and he's like, no,
I feel like this is something where you do it once by accident, and then you go, oh, it was probably the iron in my blood, and then the next time you just try adding iron, and you're like, okay, yeah, that's how I did it.
It could be, yeah.
What I imagine is every time it keeps coming out blue, and he's like, oh my god, I can't believe this, and he's holding up, he's like, what did I do? And he just has a giant streak of blood. He's like, oh,
Yeah, someone's like, maybe you should try washing your hands. It's just covered in blood.
Dude, cover your nosebleed, my god.
Okay, so the Atonement of Christ by Peter van der Wolf is the oldest painting to use this color, made in 1709. That is this Jesus painting in the corner. Mary is again in Prussian blue.
Mary be blue.
Yeah, you put Mary in blue if there's one thing I know.
She's Prussian it.
So Prussian blue is a dark blue pigment made by, again, the oxidation of iron, but it's connected with ferrocyanide salts. And so it gets its name from prussic acid, which is just hydrogen cyanide. And that's basically what yes, that is the same cyanide that is poisonous. Any free cyanide group is what is poisonous cyanide. And so if you just have hydrogen cyanide, it's really easy for stuff to interact with the cyanide group if you just have one hydrogen hanging out on it. But
cyanide is such a basic poison too. It's literally two molecules. It's carbon and nitrogen.
Okay.
Or two atoms.
This is not something I researched. This is just back pocket information of my brain. The reason cyanide kills people is because it goes into your electron transport chain of your cells and prevents your ECT from running. It stops the electron transport chain from functioning. And so all of your cells just stop being able to make energy and then die. Isn't that an insane way to kill someone?
It is.
I turned your cells off.
So
I mean, killing someone eventually turns all their cells off one way or another.
No, but as means to killing. But that's where it gets its name, because that's called prussic acid, so it's Prussian blue.
So so never mind. I think I answered it on my own brain.
I want to know what the question was still.
Well, because I was like, well, in order for a cell to go through apoptosis, it needs something to be delivered to it to signal apoptosis, but like it just dies on its own because it's not able to feed itself.
Yeah, I think you did. Yeah, I would say so. Instead of like programming the death, it just did die.
Yeah,
it just
became sensing essentially.
Yeah, and then you die. So but Prussian blue, the color is also attached to two iron groups. So like the cyanide group is inside everything, and basically what I'm saying is Prussian blue is not toxic.
Interesting.
There are a lot of toxic colors. This is not one of them.
Say, there's a lot of really, really nasty paint pigments out there, and you have to be careful with some of them.
This is not one of them. It's non-toxic. It's relatively stable. I mean, yes, the atoms, but also like light fatness. And what's interesting is it's synthetic blue, so it's easier to make, it's less expensive, so more people are starting to get access to Prussian blue versus the ultramarine blue that we saw before. So it goes from being this symbol of like luxury and religion to being this like more emotional. So all of Picasso's blue period works are Prussian blue, and that is obviously, I think, a good example of like blue going from being this luxurious color to being like something to symbolize emotion. Because we gave it to the people, and the people are emotional.
Mm-hmm. True.
Also, Starry Night is up here, and Starry Night is made with a lot of Prussian blue.
Is there also some ultramarine in there?
Or there might be. I mean, I'm sure he's using a lot of things because it's very dynamic. But hey, I mean, maybe he used one thing, unified his palette.
Honestly, if he mixed his paints, because it seems like a lot of the yellow transitions from green, so I feel like maybe he just mixed his yellows and his blues.
I was just looking more at the deeper, more saturated blues and the darker parts of the sky, because I don't know if you can get Prussian.
A lot of blues going on in this pin.
There are.
He could have been doing a lot of things.
True.
Or maybe nothing. But yeah, I read in one article that like the color is so intense that it cannot be replicated by a computer screen. I was like, okay, but maybe that's true.
That is the case with a lot of colors, actually. So you can kind of look up.
Yeah, I know. I was like, that's more if I meant. I was like, is that specific to this color though? I was like,
it's the case with a lot of like highly saturated colors.
Mm-hmm.
Computer screens can only replicate a certain number of colors, and there's like a triangle on like the human, like there's the shape of human perceivable colors is kind of wonky, but there's a triangle on there that we can replicate with computer screens, and like different screens, different types of screens, like OLED versus LCD, like all the different screen technologies have like different ones, but yeah, none of them can capture the entire human visual spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So is that because computers kind of rely more on the like light aspect of color theory rather than pigment in color theory, or am I just kind of coming out of left field here?
I think it has more to do with computers using RGB, which is an additive color system, versus pigments being subtractive.
No, pigments are additive, and your computer is light and light subtractive, right?
Okay.
No, pigments are subtractive. I know that seems weird, but computer screens are additive because you can turn on another
I see what you're
light.
Saying.
Like red plus green gives yellow versus.
But
green.
Then we get into
anyway. Color theory
because then we start getting into cyan, magenta, yellow territory.
Yeah, I think the reason that computer color spaces are limited is because you have to represent all of the different colors with numbers, and they tend to use like a whole number integer, thing. So there's like a limit on the number, and some of it is technology based. But yeah, color perception's weird.
Yeah. So but either way, I'm sure it's a very blue.
Mm-hmm.
And people seem to like it. It became really popular, especially in Japanese wood block printings of the 19th century, because it was a lot easier to obtain. And if you can imagine, like, you're a printmaker, you're trying to make a lot of prints using the same colors. Now you have this option for a cheaper blue that's still really vibrant. And holds its color better over time. And this is also the blue that is used for blueprints. This is blueprint blue. And the reason for that is because in the 1800s, scientists discovered that ammonium iron citrate and potassium ferrocyanide could create a photosensitive solution to replicate documents. So it made sense for things like blueprints and like architecture, things where you're not going to want to trace it out every time. You can like basically take a photo of it.
Mm-hmm.
Blueprints, exactly.
Yep.
The print is blue. So this is pretty simple. Basically, you draw what you want the image to be on translucent paper, and then you cover that with paper that is covered in the chemicals, and then you expose it to light, activating the reaction everywhere except for where you drew, because it's blocking out the light to activate the reaction. And that is exactly what a cyanotype is. The blue photography, you have photo paper that is covered with the chemicals, and you expose it to light except for some places, and you're capturing the shadow of the image. So
yeah, cyanotypes are really cool. I want to do those with the plants.
I really want to get into cyanotyping.
They're a lot of fun. Yeah,
I know, and I'm like, I don't need a new craft in my life, but I think it's so cool. Prussian blue, oh my god, I have so much more to say about Prussian blue. It can also be used as an antidote for certain kind of heavy metal poisonings.
Oh, that's neat.
It is listed in the World Health Organization list of essential medicines. It's basically because Prussian blue is insoluble and it's negatively charged. So if you're poisoned by things like thallium that are positively charged, it will make those things stick to it because positive and negative things attract. And then it will get stuck in the gut and excreted in your next bowel movement.
How cute.
Yeah.
You know, I think that, like,
how cute.
Well, like, you know, I don't know, like, what, like, certain, like, poisons from paints would be, but, like, it'd be funny if, like, you're perhaps Van Gogh, who would eat paint occasionally. I think he was one of the guys that ate paint, but,
that seems like something Van Gogh would do.
Yeah, right.
I literally thought this man couldn't afford to... I thought this man couldn't afford to buy paint. How's he eating it? He needs it for the... because he spent all the money on the paint. Spent all the money on the paint. Okay, that's all adding up now.
To, like, wet the brush. That's how they clean their brushes, so they just eat paint.
Oh, like the watch girls? The radium girls?
Exactly. So
now I understand.
Like, along that same vein, imagine, like, you're eating a paint and you're like, ooh, that might be poisonous. And so you eat some blue and you're like, ah, yes.
Although I ate too much red paint. It's going to throw off the balance of color in my body. Gotta eat some blue.
Dude, that is also a really good bit. We're just writing a sketch comedy show this episode.
Just on
it's all around the colors blue and red.
Oh, sketch comedy show about paint and call it Watching Paint Dry.
I like it.
That could be one of the sketches.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
That sounds like a performance art.
It starts with someone coming out and painting a wall, or like part of a wall, and then they leave, and then the comedy happens, and then like at the end you have to like see if it's dry.
100%.
And what it is someone like just starts painting a wall, and then like, you know, cut to all the bits and whatever, and then at the end Nick runs into the wall and then leaves like a Nick in
like steps away from it covered in paint on the front.
Yes, you got it. We're ending the podcast. We're going on tour with our paint bits.
Honestly, I think we could go pretty far with just paint-themed bits.
It's all the Blue Man groups.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
First.
I'm almost done with blue. Okay, there's one more blue after this blue. Okay.
Wait, is it Yinmin?
Next. That's how you pronounce it?
Well, that's how, yeah, I think so.
Okay, anyway.
You guys should
head over ourselves.
Because you also cut out both times you said it.
Well, I don't know how to pronounce it. That's why I was like, oh, that's
how
you say it.
Well, let's go to the next slide.
No, I want to tell you about two more things about Prussian blue.
Okay, sorry.
It can also be used as a histological stain. So that's the image at the bottom. This is a cell dyed with Prussian blue because it will detect iron in biopsy samples. And then the Crayola crayon Midnight Blue was previously known as Prussian blue. Crayola's version of Prussian blue. So if you need a Prussian blue... I don't know. Honestly, I'm afraid to... I think it may be because it sounds like the word Russian.
It could just be that Prussia doesn't exist and a lot of children don't know what Prussia is.
Okay. So, Yinmen? Yinmen, short for yttrium, iridium, and magnesium blue, also known as Oregon blue or mass blue, is the newest synthetically made blue on the scene, made in 2009 at Oregon State University. So she's not that old yet.
No.
She's also non-toxic and doesn't fade over time. And she has the highest infrared reflectivity rate of any blue and of most other paints, leading it to have potential energy saving benefits. And so I looked into a little bit of like why this is one where I was like, okay, but what, like, what does that mean and why? So basically, the chemical structure of the color is like this pyramid shape, these like double layers of pyramids, and within each atom, stay with me here. Within each atom, right, you have your valence shell, and then you have your conduction band. There's an area in between. It's called the band gap. This is how we get colors. Okay. This is color. So there's a certain amount of energy that electrons in the valence shell need to gain to move across that gap. Okay? That amount of energy correlates with the size of the electron, like the size of the proton wave. So Nick talked about waves before, right? They can be longer or shorter. And that means that they have more or less energy. If the energy matches the band gap, right, it will absorb it and be that color wavelength. Or do you follow?
Allegedly. But so like basically it takes, so is that also the reason it doesn't fade? Because it requires less energy, or does that not have any like correlation?
Well, okay. We haven't even gotten there yet. So this is just why this is like, okay. So wavelength is either you have less energy or you have more energy, right? The wavelength is just how much energy is there.
Mm-hmm.
It's either small energy or big energy wave. If it is the same amount of energy needed for the electron to bounce, like the electron wants to move or could move if it received a certain amount.
Mm-hmm.
If it receives the right amount, like if you need 25 cents in the vending machine and you put in 25 cents, you get blue out. But if you put in 20 cents, it's gonna send it back at you. It's gonna reflect it. Mm-hmm. So you need to give it the right amount of energy.
So it's kind of its bonding factor then?
Yeah. So if the energy matches the gap, electron will take it. It says yes. And what doesn't match gets reflected. Okay. So this color is blue because
Oh God.
It's this. I know, he's so cute. So this is blue because it has a really large gap, which means it needs. Wait, large gap means
higher energy input.
Yes, but is that long wavelength or?
If it's
high energy, high energy is short wavelength.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's absorbing all of the red and orange wavelengths. It's reflecting all of the blue wavelengths.
Right.
Which correlates with the size of this gap. So this color is special because the gap is so big. That's what makes this color different than other colors. If it had a smaller band gap, it would absorb all of the low energy and reflect off the other energy. But since it's a big gap, it doesn't absorb as much as the visible IR wavelength. So it's so big that we're getting out of colors that we can see, and we're getting into infrared wavelength.
Oh shit.
That is why it's so special.
Said, let's make a crayon out of
that. This is also a crayon. Well, so basically, yes. So it's just the gap is so much bigger than any other blue has this gap.
I see.
So it's like the most vibrant blue because there's no other color involved.
Yeah, it is only blue, and it's reflecting blue, but it's also reflecting infrared wavelengths.
Interesting.
Yes. So that's why they're like, oh, this could be used to cool down a house because it is reflecting so much shit off of it.
Cute.
Yeah. So this is also the culprit, though, that replaced the dandelion crayon. Yeah, the dandelion
Kayla,
crayon.
the dandelion crayon is like yellowish.
I'm gonna say dandelion.
Nick,
Dare I say?
I will give this blue its credit. They were probably just going to replace dandelion anyway and had to come up with new colors. But it just so happens that the year they got rid of the dandelion crayon, they introduced their version of Yemen blue, which they call Bluetiful. So,
wow.
But it's in my opinion that Bluetiful showed up on the scene and sent dandelion home. That's how I see it.
Oh, because this is in their standard pack of however many crayons. I understand.
Well, they also retire colors. Like, they don't make the dandelion color anymore. Like, what? Things get kicked off the scene. That is what I'm saying. I love the dandelion
crayon. That was one of my favorite colors.
Well, bitch, you can't buy her no more. Did you not know about that?
No, I didn't. I haven't been drawing with crayons a lot recently. I'm sorry.
She's your favorite girl. You don't even know that she went home last week?
It's been a while.
She's been for years now. And you haven't called me.
Low commitment, whatever.
Damn.
This speaks volumes.
Nick's seeing Bluetiful now.
I get it.
Yeah, crazy how you forgot about her and now you're using Bluetiful.
I haven't been.
Retired in 2017, Nick.
Using any crayons.
Retired in 2017.
When was the last time you drew something with crayons?
Like last week, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'm a fake crayoner.
And I've been saying that. All right. Well, she's our last blue. Did you guys have a favorite blue before I move on to the other colors?
I do like the history of Prussian a lot, but like Yinmin is so fun because it's a new blue. It's not even voting age yet, you know?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Is that what you like about it?
No, I just think it's kind of neat.
I'm sorry, I was so quick to cut that.
That was so quick, Abby. Holy fuck. She stays clocking.
Okay.
I love how I've just been trying to paint Nick as an asshole this slide.
He makes it so easy.
This entire podcast is just ripping on Nick.
Oh my god. Start some drama.
That's so funny. It was like prior to recording, I was so supportive of Nick. I was like, oh my
god. Abby's personality flip when we hit record. She's like, and no one will know that I'm nice to you.
I'm sorry.
Hey, if it's funny, you have to say it, and those are just the rules.
I respect the fact that it's funny.
Whatever. We'll move on.
I will say, like, I love blues that are in nature. Like, I honestly like a lot of like colors that just appear in nature and like the pigments. But like,
ultramarine was a naturally occurring pigment, and she was a bright bitch.
Mm-hmm.
She's a bright bitch, and like I love the way that waters are. I love the way the sky is. I don't know. I love atmospheric blues.
Mm-hmm.
Blue's just a good color. Blue is really a good color.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're moving on. We're hitting up vermilion. All right. The earliest versions of vermilion were made from a naturally occurring material called cinnabar that contains mercury and sulfur. The pigment was made by heating and crushing up cinnabar. However, today, it's generally considered that if you have a synthetic vermilion, it's called vermilion. And if you make it like naturally occurring, the color is cinnabar. So like just if you're talking to artists and you want to sound like you know your colors, vermilion versus cinnabar.
Interesting.
But
yeah, that shit is super toxic.
If you say, oh my god, it's giving Devil Wears Prada. Like, it's cerulean. It's vermilion and it's cinnabar. The the synthetic pigment.
You got it, sign it up.
Hey, I got there eventually. Third time's the charm. The synthetic pigment is just basically putting together mercury and sulfur, which is what the mineral is made of. Like they're making the mineral more or less. The first known use of this color goes back to the Neolithic era. This wall painting in the picture is from somewhere around 8,000 BCE in present-day Turkey. So vermilion goes way back.
Wow. Yeah, that's an old-ass painting.
Reds are just so potent. Like, is it just because of, like, the reaction of the chemicals?
I think it's because iron is red and we just have a lot of naturally occurring iron.
I think that's what a big part of it is. Like, there's a lot of naturally occurring red pigments out there that are relatively easy to get your hands on.
Well, at least just like with our makeup of things on Earth, yeah, we have a lot. But I could have thought
where red pigments stain everything and they will not go away, and like most other pigments do not do that. So like, why is red just so like? Is it just its binding factor, or like what? I don't know.
I bet it would I bet the answer would vary based on like what kind of red it is. Because I bet some it's like chemically maybe something with like the iron levels makes this, but then I bet there's others that's like, oh, they use this kind of binding agent and it holds up easier in red. Like I bet there's different answers. Yeah. But I don't know the answer.
Yeah. Cinnabar, reach out to us and we'll have a conversation.
Miss Cinnabar, if you got something to say on that.
Yeah, if anybody knows Cinnabar, let her know that we want to.
We're trying to get her on the horn. We've been trying to contact her for weeks now. So if anyone has connects. The artificial pigment was first invented in China in the 4th century, but was still used with organic pigments. They like would use both. From the 9th century onward, vermilion was really widely used in common for manuscript illuminations. So like when you see like fancy books and stuff from medieval times, vermilion was a popular color. You're big on illuminating?
Yeah, I think that. Well, the word comes from like the manuscripts too, which I think is really neat.
Yeah,
like
I'm big on illuminating. There is there's a library near me that has like illuminated manuscripts on display, and I really want to go. It's like a museum, and I really want to go see them. I haven't been yet, but it's not a free museum, so I have to like set aside time and like dedicate myself to looking at books. Yeah, but I will do it. Again, this pigment was very expensive to make. I don't know why.
It cost vermilions to make.
$1 vermilion, please.
Oh my god, Abby, you are on it today. That was so quick.
The other day I made a Kurt Cobain joke, and I was pretty proud of it. Kurt Cobain has this like song that was like unreleased, but it's been released now, and it's literally just him saying beans over and over.
This is love Kurt Cobain.
Maybe that one should have stayed in the vault.
No,
I'm glad.
Release the bean tape. Mm-hmm. He would have wanted it. He would have wanted it. He made it to be heard. Yeah, so it was expensive. So a lot of times artists would like cut it with other stuff, like make it less pure. And then they could get like in a lot of legal trouble through the churches and shit if they found out that they were like cutting the pigments. Because they would get money from them to buy the pigments, keep some of the money, and then cut the pigment. So they were like stealing from the church, I guess. I don't know. To me, it seems like get your coin, girl. Mix
of red.
To me, it seems like they're not paying you enough. Up your profit. The church got the money clearly.
Yeah.
Do they not want to help the community? Do they not want to support local artists? Pocket the money.
I spent all my money on blue.
Pop blue. Okay. Despite its cost, it also, yes, it is toxic. It was popular because it was very opaque and vibrant, and it was a really good color for modeling flesh tones in drapery. So a very common technique of the time was to do all of the red drapery and like clothing and skin in the paintings with an underpainting of vermilion, and then use like cheaper reds and stuff on top of it to like make the dimension.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think you do see this come through in the final product. Like the skin tones all look really warm and like lively, and this is also when they start doing this is like a time period where it's transitioning into wanting to make really realistic imagery like with your art. So they do go hand in hand in that way. Vermilion was really popular up even through the 1880s, making its way into the Impression era with artists like Van Gogh and Degas. So we see it in some earlier works too. I don't think I included some pictures. I'll have to find some. But yeah, it had a lot of staying power until a new red came on the scene. We eventually got cadmium red, and it was more affordable. It wasn't toxic. It was chemically stable. It was basically a better bitch in all ways. So the original vermilion is not with us, but often like you could still buy vermilion like a synthetic equivalent. But yeah, we're not putting together mercury and like slapping it on artwork the way we used to be.
Says
lead
you.
white.
Lead white.
Lead white. No surprise here. This one is also toxic. It is made of lead. It was made in the early. I can't tell if that was real shock or not. If it was sarcasm, your acting's getting too good.
That's news.
Lead white was. Oh my god, Abby, you're too much today.
I'm sorry. I'll stop.
Oh my god, no, that was really good. It was it's an important pigment because it was used in a lot of shit, unfortunately. With the ancient Egyptians, the Romans, the Greeks, it was used in a lot of ointments, plasters of various things, cosmetics,
houses,
art, houses.
Your wall.
Chin was like a genetic thing, or was it just the fact that they had a bunch of toxic chemicals and everything?
The Habsburg chin was definitely genetic, which would be a fun episode. I love the Habsburg chin. However, it was probably not helping that they were covering themselves in lead.
No, definitely not.
Two things can be going on.
Some of the life expectancy increase we've seen in the last 50 years probably contributed to by the fact that we're just putting less toxic shit in our environment.
Yeah, so it was first identified by Pliny, and I don't know if it was the elder or the younger.
But one of the Plinies.
One of the Pliny shows up. Yeah. And I think they actually found this section where he talks about the paint color being the color of the ships in Pompeii. Like it was preserved there. So that's why we know about this happening. So lead white is carbonate hydroxide, and the pigment is made by exposing lead to acetic vapors in the presence of moisture and carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide is typically provided some kind of fermenting material, such as horse manure was a popular one, so that there was some kind of heat source and liquid source, like water source. The vinegar, the acetic acid, I don't know why I put air quotes around it, like vinegar is not acetic acid.
Yeah.
Allegedly converts the lead into tribasic lead acetate, which is then decomposed by carbon dioxide and forms basic lead carbonate. Basically, what you need to understand is the metals do things with the liquids that are there, and it leads to a white substance.
There you go.
Yeah. Yes, it is dangerous. It is lead. Here's purple.
Ooh. Purple's another one of those like very rare colors, you know?
Yes, which is why it's Tyrian purple, but it's also known as royal purple and imperial purple, because you get the pigment through secretion of mucus from snails. It's like a certain class of snails that when you expose their mucus to sunlight, there's a bromination reaction. So this produces 6,6-dibromine, which absorbs light in the red and blue spectrum. So this was more commonly... Yeah. Abby, I have no fucking idea.
Like, this is along the same veins of, like, who milked the first cow? Like, you know...
Yeah, right.
Who put a snail on some chemicals?
Who milked the first snail?
Who milked the first snail is wild, but yeah, they were out there milking snails. I'm sure they were breeding snails and doing snail activities with them. Snail farming.
What do you count as snail activities?
Stealing their mucus for fabric. Yeah, so it was really expensive, it was difficult to produce, and therefore it was often associated with wealth and power. In the 4th century AD, laws made it so only the Roman emperor was allowed to wear the color. And I don't understand this at all, but it's said that the quality of the pigment actually improves over time rather than fades like most other pigments. And yes, Nick?
I think you said that it reacts to sunlight and abomination, whatever, something.
Yeah, exactly.
So it probably strengthens over time with whatever latent pigment is there that hasn't reacted yet.
Must it not eventually hit like a threshold?
I mean, it's probably a logistic curve.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah, so... I mean, I think that's pretty cool. Not many fabric dyes you can say the color gets better over time.
Yeah.
And I feel like you see, this is a really old rug over here made with this dye. It is a very deep purple. So I do wonder, maybe it was not as deep of a purple before. But now we do associate, this very deep purple as being, a royal purple.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very interested in, how, some of the degradation has, red tint to it.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can see here with the snail chart, you can get, a wide range of, purples to the point of a purple that's leaning far more red.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure I'm sure there's a lot of factors that go into how purple one's snail mucus is. But yeah, you can see they have them subsetted by different kinds of snail.
Yeah, that's not for me to know.
Yeah, I didn't look too much more into that. I was got it, snail mucus next. Next is Vantablack.
Vantablack.
Okay.
Sorry, typo. It's Vantablack. This color was first originated in 2014. Are you okay?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I was I don't know. The left one is very interesting to describe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I couldn't tell if it's just photoshopped out or if it's really just...
No, that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. That's how black it is.
And Abby, if you look at this aluminum foil, it's just painted on the aluminum. It's a wrinkled piece of aluminum, but then it's so dark that no light bounces off.
I remember
when crazy?
Vantablack got announced a couple of years ago. I guess it was 2015 or something like that. And it was the blackest pigment ever made, and so much so that it hides a lot of surface texture, detail, anything. It just looks like flat blackness.
This isn't the black dye that they used to dye their teeth in ancient Asian culture, right?
No.
Oh, definitely not.
Okay.
I'll get into a little bit. It is a synthetic pigment. Okay. So it is named Vantablack. It stands for vertical aligned nanotube array. So that is how this pigment is made. It's made of a series of vertical nanotubes that trap light and then continuously deflect the light between the tubes, therefore collecting all the light within the color. So it absorbs 0.96% of all visible light and was originally invented to paint on satellites, stealth ships and stuff. But a British artist,
definitely could use this to cook an egg so quickly.
I guess it would get pretty hot, wouldn't it?
It would probably stick a lot, though. Those nanotubes are sticky, I think.
True.
Sticky tubes.
I wonder if they have a melting point, though. Well, anyway, that's not for me to discuss. But so it was originally made to paint shit, but then a British artist, Anish Kapoor.
Fuck that guy. There was too I hate you, Anish Kapoor. Go to hell.
Yes.
Shit.
He sees the.
Someone explain.
We'll get to it.
We're about to explain. What do you think we're about to talk about, baby? Okay. We're about to get into the beef. Yes, get ready.
The bean
get
and the
your
beef.
Tea out.
We're having a whole dinner.
Bean.
He gets the exclusive rights to the color. And the inventor, the company inventor of the color, Nanosystems, confirms that he is the sole owner of the color and therefore is the only person allowed to use it. Which gets into a whole nother thing about like, can you patent a color? But like, this is a little different because it's an invention. Like they invented the nanotubes doing this thing that created the color.
Yeah, and the whole chemical process involved with actually making it, and the coding process. Because there is a lot of like stuff that goes into actually being able to put this color onto a surface.
Exactly. So they like, obviously you can't patent the color black, but you can patent this vertical aligned nanotube array technology. So this one person owns the color. Well, in retaliation, a British artist, Stuart Semple, he invents a fluorescent pink called the pinkest pink. He makes it so that everyone can buy the color except the guy that owns Vantablack. He legally bans him from purchasing the color. He sells it in like 50-gram powder pigments. And on the artist's website, you just have to confirm that you will not give the paint to Anish Kapoor. And he also doesn't make any profit. He just sells it for cost of materials.
Yeah. There's like a checkbox you have to click where it's like...
I want to read you what's on his website. I like his description of the color, I think, is everything you need to know about the pinkest pink. He says, "Hi everyone, I've released my own brand of pink paint. Pink. It's the world's pinkest pink pigment. Pink is available on my website to everyone but Anish Kapoor. Artist Anish Kapoor famously acquired exclusive rights to use the world's blackest black in his art. Developed by Nanosystems, although originally developed for military and astronomical purposes, they subsequently confirmed that Kapoor alone had been authorized to use the pigment for his artistic purposes." I don't think it's really fair. We all remember kids at school who wouldn't share their coloring pencils, but then they ended up on their own with no friends. It's cool. Anish can use Anish can have his black, but the rest of us will be playing with the rainbow. Pink is a highly reflective and rich powder pigment paint which repels light to an effective fluorescence, blah, blah, blah. You can purchase this, blah, blah, blah. You just need to make a legal declaration at the checkout process confirming that, quote, "You are not Anish Kapoor. You are no way affiliated with Anish Kapoor. You are not purchasing this item on the behalf of Anish Kapoor or associated with Anish Kapoor. To the best of your knowledge, information, and belief, this paint will not make its way into the hands of Anish Kapoor. Yes. If you order some, I hope you love it."
The poison meant specifically couscous.
Yes, couscous is poison. So, unfortunately, in 2016, Kapoor did get his hands on the pinkest pink, posting this Instagram post, which is still up. I took this screenshot. I went to his Instagram profile and found this Instagram post. His username is dirty_corner. Not a shout out.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
He has a brand.
He posted this picture called with his middle finger dipped in the pigment with the caption, "Up yours, #pink." But it's fine. Semple has gone on to make many other pigments, including developing Black 2.0 and 3.0. And it looks like I just was on their website up to 4.0. It is not technically as dark as Vantablack, but it is the darkest acrylic paint in the world.
Yeah, they are
and it's still really fucking dark. If you look at this picture, it's still kind of essentially doing the same thing.
Yes, much of it used for a like slightly darker black that's unavailable.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, it's like
these are the darkest commercially available paints that you can buy, which is like kind of cool. And there are interesting things that a darker black can let you do, especially if it's like
But to me, it's like there's nothing that you couldn't get away doing with Black 4.0 that Vantablack can do. Like, okay, whatever. Keep your stupid nanotubes.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, this color works. It's different, not in the same way. It does something similar to what International Klein Blue did by adding more mattifying agents to reduce the amount of light that was reflected from the color. So it's basically just really matte.
Yeah. Anish Kapoor, by the way, is the guy who made the bean in Chicago. He's the artist responsible for that.
He's the bean guy?
He hates that people call it the bean because it has some like pretentious actual name.
I did know that the bean guy did not like it,
so
calling it the bean.
You should call it.
I know it's called the Mirror Gate, but who the fuck calls it that?
I think it's called Cloudgate, actually. But like, who the fuck? No, it's not Cloudgate. It's the bean.
Whatever. I don't give a fuck.
Exactly.
Bean.
So fuck you, Anish Kapoor. I hope you're listening.
Do you think he'll listen like the Flat Earth guy?
No, I doubt it.
Is he alive?
Maybe, but probably not.
Oh yeah, this was only in 2016. I forgot.
Yeah, it's just like recent drama.
I know. I'm like acting like 2016 was so long ago.
December 2014.
All right, well that's everything I had.
Yep.
That was awesome. That was a very colorful talk.
It
Oh
was
my
very
god,
colorful.
thank you.
Love that
Yeah.
we're still like creating new colors and new pigments and stuff. That's a really fun
If you
thing.
I know,
could,
do you think-
well, this might be a dumb question, but if you could like invent your own color and describe it in any way, you don't have to be like, I would mix these things together to make this, but like maybe like I'd make a cunty color or whatever. But like like if you guys had like a vibe that you could produce a color out of, what would you do?
Like I saw people talking about, you know how like the color that's like in between two panes of glass.
The like greenish thing that yeah.
That'd be cool.
But it's like so dimensional.
It is very dimensional.
I don't know, it's too hard for my brain to like conceive of something that we don't already have.
Right. Well, have you heard the theory that's like, do we really agree on what one color is, like by tone and pigment, or do we all just like have weird color perceptions and like kind of come to the same conclusion of a color?
Yeah, like we've all just made the same associations of certain like
what if
our internal processing of those colors could be different.
Call it green.
Right.
Yeah. I guess it is I just owe it. Yeah, you're hurting my head. I do just feel like there would be some way for us to come to the right answer. You know what I mean? Like to get on the same page. I feel like someone smarter than me can conceive of that.
We didn't all agree on the same color, but it is interesting. Like,
no, I think it's an interesting theory. It just feels like it. Yeah.
I suspect that there is probably like some amount of variation in the way that we all perceive color. Like there almost has to be, but I don't think it's anywhere near extreme enough that, you know, like something that I perceive as green would be perceived as purple by you. You know what I mean?
Have you seen like
it's probably just like slightly?
Have you seen that Nike shoe image though? Do you know the one I'm talking about?
No.
It's one of those where like it's a black or gold versus gold.
Oh,
it's white, a blue and black dress versus It's one of those where it's like, what color is this? But this one is, in my opinion, better, like a better illusion, because you get to a point where you can kind of easily flip it. And it's when it does flip, it's crazy because the colors are so different. And it's stuff like that where it's like, we really could be perceiving something so differently at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
I'll see if I can find it and I'll send it around.
Yeah, there's another thing I was thinking about with color, but I can't remember again. So
this was a fun one for me.
This was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I like this.
Okay. Anything you guys have to put out into the universe?
Follow us on Instagram, subscribe on YouTube, and ring the bell. Stay updated whenever we post if you want.
Email us.
No pressure. Email us at thispodcounts@gmail.com. Thispodcounts
guys,
on Instagram.
Just send an email. It doesn't have to have content. It could be a smiley face. But we just want to hear from you. We just want to know.
You can tell us which member is your favorite. Who's your favorite host?
Okay, well, don't do that.
Only do it if it's me.
Nick is starting drama. Oh my god. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks for listening.
This podcast counts as socializing. This podcast counts as socializing.